and one of the presenters. What we're going to do is kind of the way we'll proceed forward is we will do introductions, and then we will do presentations, and then we'll do questions. So we'll get through the presentations pretty quick because we want to make sure we get as many questions answered as possible. So I will turn it over to Admiral Andrews. Let her introduce herself.
Well, greetings, good mornings to all that's present here, and as well as those that are joining us on social media. I'm Annie Andrews, a retired Rear Admiral, and actually I've been out now for about 10 full years, but I will tell you I enjoyed my time immensely. Some of the jobs in the Navy, I served 32 wonderful years, and some of those, of course, have been in charge of all of Navy's recruiting, which was one of my last jobs in the Navy. I also had the opportunity to be the captain at, I would say, one of the greatest training facilities at Recruit Training Command up in Great Lakes, which again was just fabulous, seeing America and everybody from all across and around the world. Also worked a couple of times at the Pentagon, which worked at the Joint Staff for manpower personnel. I've also worked as N12, which was, I would say, one of my first flag jobs, and working closely with making sure that we have the number of people that's needed to go to the ships, the squadrons, the submarines, and many, many places. And I will tell you, the time goes by fast because I've been out, as I said, 10 years this year, but it just seemed like it was yesterday. And the number one thing you'll hear as we go through is keeping busy, getting involved, and using the talents that certainly have been given to us. This time, I will pass it on to Admiral Evans.
Hey, good morning, everyone, both here in the room and out there in the internet land. I'm Stephen Evans, a retired Rear Admiral. Been retired for 5 years now. A surface warfare officer, commanded the USS Mitchell Destroyer Squadron 50, and as a flag officer, I commanded Carrier Strike Group 2, the George Herbert Walker Bush Carrier Strike Group. So my background, additional background in the Navy, I was a senior military assistant to the SecNav. And then as my first flag officer job was the commander of the Naval Service Training Command up in Great Lakes. And so I, just as Admiral Andrews, I was able to see across our nation the young men and women who came and wanted to serve, and getting them off to start in the Navy, both officer and enlisted. Then my last job was as the deputy U.S. military rep at NATO over in Brussels. So I had a great career in the Navy. I've been retired for 5 years now, and have continued to have not just a great career, but a great life. And I look forward to talking to you all about that this morning.
Morning, Tony Creed. I retired 21 years ago, retired LDO, Lieutenant Commander, retired from the VA as Associate Medical Center Director for Los Angeles. Was also a CFO when I went into VA. The day after I retired from the Navy, I started my first franchise. It was a real estate franchise. I owned 2 real estate franchises, and then I've owned 3 brands of hair salons, built it to 52 locations, and then another 7 companies. And I think you'll hear from probably most of us on the panel how rewarding it is to own your own business and to be able to have that freedom, but it does come with a cost. It's just a real pleasure to be with you today. So what we'll do is we'll get into the presentations now. I'm going to turn it over to Admiral Andrews and let her start the presentations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It is just, again, awesome to be here and to have you join us today. I really like what we're doing because we're keeping it going. Due to the fact so many things have changed, but today we're going to go on with this leadership summit. I think it's very important because in many ways we all are leaders. So sitting, of course, at your panel today are retired, and you can see just, can't see, but there's wonderful people also in the room those that I've served with, worked for, and those that are certainly up and becoming that I'm meeting as well, which is just as phenomenal. So as you see with my first slide, for me, it's always important because none of us would be where we are today if it wasn't for our family. So for me, my family is small. I have a nephew here that you see in the picture. His name is D'Angelo. He's my heart. He also is in control of my money as well. So, you know, whatever he wants, Auntie gets. And you would think after 27 years of life, I would stop that, but it hasn't started. So that's why I have to continue. I have to continue to work, you know, because if it's not your own children, it's your sister's children or your brother's children or your nieces and nephews. So it's important about building that wealth. What I'm going to be talking about with you today is about a consultant's guide to launching a successful business. Now, some of the time you're wondering what in the world we're going to do when we get out or how we're going to get started. Well, I hope today I can walk you through that because there's critical steps in starting a business. And I'd like to walk you through from concept to perhaps getting your first customers. And this talk, of course, is for you, especially if you're thinking about launching your business or doing something someday. Now, a couple of things on here I just want to go over with you. I certainly have been keeping busy since retirement. You know, when people say, oh, retire and take the first 6 months off and just relax, well, I think I took 30 days because right when I retired, the next day, about 10 years ago, 30 days later, I started working for the Federal Aviation Administration as a senior executive, being in charge of the human resources there. So I learned a lot actually from my Navy career as an HR officer. And it was an easy step, although it was quite different. It was certainly an easy step because we still dealt with training. We dealt with a lot of things. The difference is that you also had to deal with a lot of unions and different things. So I took them through the era when we had the furlough, also during the COVID era. So some of the other things besides the United States Navy, which again was just tremendous, besides working for the FAA, then I said, okay, after retiring from the FAA, what am I going to do when I grow up? And apparently I still haven't grown up yet because I'm still taking those opportunities to do things. So some of the things I did, and one of them was just starting my own business, being a consultant. And I'm here to tell you, everyone that's out there listening, you also can be a consultant. But it's depending on your background, on what type of consultant you want to be, as well as each of you can be a coach. Because every last one of you that have served in senior leadership positions, you've either mentored, had to talk to family members, or your sailors and their families at some time or the other. Other things I've gotten myself involved in is that I've been on as a board member and actually serve as second vice chair for Navy Federal Credit Union, which you know is the largest credit union in the world. And that has just been tremendous. I've been with them now for 10 years. And actually, I started before I took off the uniform. But when I made flag officer, I had to come off. But I joined right after because, as you know, with them in particular, they're all about taking care of people, especially those that want to start a new business. So please make sure you look into that. I also sit on the board as with the Armed Services YMCA. If you didn't know, you have the big YMCA, but the armed services also have the YMCA. So see what I'm talking to you about this. This is something I hope to have a replacement someday on sitting on some of these boards. So I just wanted to make sure. So the YMCA, again, taking care of our most needed members and helping them along the way and their families. Another board I sit on is as a board of trustee for the Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard Residence Foundation. Now you're probably saying, wow, when do you have time? I'm still trying to figure that out. It'd be something more than 24 hours a day. So with this board in particular, all of them are different. This one actually deals with our most valuable people, which is our seniors. So this is a retirement home actually located here in McLean, Virginia. So whether I work with the youth, the babies, or even still with our elderly, it's always, so it's a 400-person hospital. And like I said, it's just amazing. I also, as a strategic advisor for the Civilian Ready Foundation. Now, just want to let you know, most of us, compared to maybe some of my panel members, are volunteer. And a lot of these are volunteer, but I'm telling you, sometimes when you volunteer, it's the best thing ever because you meet quite a few people, you continue to network. And the last one here is that I just been appointed actually in my hometown as an advisor to the Liberty County Development Authority. And what this is helping with community work closer with the military as well as with the government and civilians. And I will tell you, I'm a Navy girl in an Army town, and they remind me of it quite often, especially during the Army game, an Army Navy game. But it's just been tremendous. It's near 3rd Infantry Division at Fort Stewart. So I didn't have time to really list all the other things, but what I will tell you is that I also serve now as a business consultant for also a couple of organizations. If you do your job right and good, it's just that right now I've been offered a job to work there permanently. My thing was just giving them advice on what to do. They want me to use the advice I give them and do something with the company. So again, it's all been great, but let's move on. So with this slide, and of course I'm doing my technical thing. So this should be let me just go back a few. There we go. You see that wheel? That lets you know I'm definitely Navy and nautical all the way. This slide presentation actually talks about crafting your business. So what we're going to do is go over, here's the roadmap for today's session. I'll cover 4 major pillars in writing a business plan, like securing funding. What do you do to register your business, as well as establishing the customers that you want? Because there's lots of jobs, there's lots of opportunities, but who are these customers that really need what you perhaps can give them? So with this slide, people start their business for different reasons. Some could be because it's the freedom, problem solving, building generational wealth, and are wanting more control of your lifestyle and what you want to do. Because as you know, serving in the military or serving as a senior executive or working at different places, your time is not your own. You're spent doing things and helping people. But just think about that. Think about the things that you're doing now and how can you start your own business someday using all the talents, the skills that military and other positions have given you. So with that, the freedom and flexibility, I think, was probably one of the number one things that I looked about. Because I think that having you doing these things at your own time and when you want to certainly pays dividends when working. So why do you start perhaps a business? So why start a business? Again, for different reasons. And let's go now to the business plan. So the business plan essentials, what are some of the things that you're going to need? Well, first of all, you're going to need a strong plan, a blueprint, I would call it. What is an executive summary? And a lot of you are probably familiar with writing, your performance and your fitness reports and different things. What is that you need most, and making sure you have all the right tools and equipment to do so. So a strong business plan is your blueprint, and it forces you to clarify your vision, your strategy, and your financials. Because investors and lenders, I will tell you, they want to see this. If they're going to invest in you, they want to know how come or why. But even if you self-invest, you definitely want to have your internal GPS on how this is going to work and how this is going to go. And then remember, if you're lending from a bank, they want to know as well how you're going to invest and how this is going to work out really well. So this is the lean canvas optional model. So I want to just take a little bit to go through this. So when you look at this, you have the customer segment. So therefore, when you're looking at business and things that you want to do, what are several steps that you need to have? So in particular, for lean and startups, especially if you're going to do solo entrepreneurs, the lean canvas model helps you to capture your plan in a one-page snapshot. It's great for quickly validating ideas before writing a full plan. So when you walk through those steps, it will certainly help you. First, find out what is the problem that you're trying to solve. What is the unique value proposition that is there? What solutions perhaps that you can come up with? What are the revenue streams that you can use? What's the cost is going to be? And what are some of those key measures? So a lot of these, depending on the business that you do, you have to really research, do your homework, and see what's going to benefit you. And what is so good about this is that you can use this, steps 1 through 7, steps 1 through 5, or whatever you may need. And I'm so glad that they'll be able to, print this and have this later on, for you as well. The next slide actually talks about funding options. What are those funding options? Well, I will tell you, my funding options was right from my account. So I decided, save up over the years, which my nephew didn't take from me. I was able to at least use my own money to start the business. And I just wanted to see. Of course, I would tell you sometime the first year is pretty rough because you're trying to figure it out and you may not know everything. But I will tell you, just keep going and it will come. Also, I'm sure you've had some mentors that's out there. And of course, all of us have probably talked about that because none of us are sitting here today without someone to support, help us, lead, and guide. So stick certainly with your mentors. So again, other things you can use or places you can use your bank. You can get loans from SBA. And I will tell you, when you get loans, and SBA, by the way, is Small Business Administration. And of course, you can have your friends and family support you. Now, I'm sure if you go out there with a jar or something of the sort, they're like, okay, I'll help you fund. But just remember, they want to know what they get out of this too. So that's always interesting. And although it says angle, I'm not dyslexic yet, but it should be angel. It's angel investor. So please, I want you to look that up because they are a great source in supporting, funding, and helping with one another. And also, because everybody is all about social media, you can crowdfund, the GoFundMe. I know people are saying, GoFundMe, can you really do that? But yes, if you want to start something, because I'm here to tell you, that idea came from a lot of our young entrepreneurs. And some of those that I have met are only like 26, 27 years old. But because of the GoFundMe and things that they have done, they're already starting their 3rd or 4th entrepreneurship doing other things. The next slide is talking about how to prepare for funding. So to secure funding, prepare clear financials. Define how you're going to use the money and show how you repay or scale. Now, your credibility and clarity matters as much as the idea that you're going to have. So you can do financial projects, use of funds and breakdown. What is it going to be? Because once you come up with a plan, then let's say you get, $10,000, $25,000, $250,000. Then what are you going to do with it? Then also decide, are you nonprofit? Are you for-profit? I mean, there's so many different things that you have to see whether or not if this is working for you. The other that's going to be important is that now pick your name. And it wasn't that easy for me. You wanted to come up and use somebody else's name or something that's going to be catchy, but what is really going to work for you? So of course I use my name, my last name is Andrews Consulting, but I also thought about certainly several of the ships I had a chance to visit and do. And one of those, of course, was the Enterprise. And I said, Enterprise. Also in human resources, we talk about the enterprise being everyone. So that's actually where that came up with. Now I said it's consulting, but I also do coaching as well. But you can have a whole long words of Andrew's consulting and coaching and motivating and inspiring. I mean, you could have a whole lot of those. So I just cut it to consulting. And once people either go on my website or talk to me about it, then I can tell them other things that I do. You certainly want to make sure that you get your EIN from the IRS, because as long as you're making money, they're making money to you. So just know they want to know what you're making, because you're going to have to pay something at some time or the other. And it's just like we do it at any time. So again, make sure you get an EIN from the IRS. You also will need to register with the state. Now, something else I want to mention. I only recommend LLCs, but there's others that you can recommend too for flexibility and liability. Also, don't forget to get insurance, apply for licenses. But in order to do that, no states are the same. So make sure that you go to your state and look up the information, or go and talk with someone at city, especially if you work in particular counties or cities. What is the permit needed for that particular state or city which you're in? They're not the same. Let's say if I was going to go hunting, running a business, for game and boarding and fishing and stuff, that's certainly going to be different. Or if I'm going to have a food franchise, I'm going to need certainly much more because of that. And of course, more with that is more liability. Although I may not work in that gauge, I still got insurance, because you always want to cover yourself in things regardless of what. I could be out there consulting and someone could say, oh, she led me around the wrong path. That's not what's it all about, but you just never know. So again, I would say protect yourself and choose a legal structure once again, whether you want it to be an LLC or core or whatever. Getting your first customers would just be great. And like I said, it just didn't happen for me automatically. I'm not much of a social media person. Yes, I have LinkedIn. Most of my friends that have social media, they said, go out there. I'm still, I have to get with that program, but I'm here to tell you social media does work. Mine, a lot of times, the differences are by word of mouth. And that certainly have helped me a lot, by someone recommending me for something, or just talking with people, or again, talking to mentors and people of the sort. I think that really has been a help. So start with a clear, a customer profile. Who do you want? You can't do everything and be everything to everyone. If there's a certain age group you want to work with teenagers, then specify that. If you only want to work with minority businesses, specify that. If you only want to work with women, period, or with men, or with whomever, then specify what you really want to do. Because people want to know, are you invested in what they're doing and how they want to do? Also, test the market. There's MVPs and things of certainly that you can use. And these are different surveys. You can go online and you can look at and test what the market is about. Also, again, as I use, it was network and referrals that certainly have been helped. And build your digital presence. Many business grow through networks and word of mouth in the early stage. And again, that would have helped me to be successful. Marketing and sales. Now, a solid online presence really builds credibility. So combine organic methods with direct outreach. Use the free tools, because there are many of them are out there. So one in particular I want you to know is my Google Business. It's Google My Business SEO. And I'm telling you that is very helpful for many. And when you Google it, you'll see exactly what comes up, because Google have a lot of things out there that works in your behalf to try and help you. You can also partnership with events. Like sometimes you hear that there's many things that are coming up, and you may want to have your business to come out there and sit and be a part of it. Sometimes I say you have to spend money to make money. And it doesn't just come freely. So again, look at what you want to do. if you want to advertise on the website, but a lot of times those advertisements are really free. LinkedIn is free, and that's probably more business oriented. But there's also Facebook and all the other things. But when I tell people about Facebook, they said, I'm certainly out of the age. I don't know, they have Snapchat, Chit Chat, Tweety Bird. I mean, there's so many things that are out there now. I'm not even all familiar with them. I'm sure as soon as I get off of this, there'll be so many more. But you will find that what works for you. Now, here's some consultant tips for you. So, in particular, here's our lessons I give every client. Test your idea first. Keep costs lean. Focus on value and relationships. Track your performance and be open to change. Just like what we had to do here, be open to change, be flexible, be agile in what you do, because that's business, how it evolves. So here's some helpful resources I really need you to look at. Again, the Small Business Association, Planning and Funding, the IRS for EIN, and of course doing your taxes, SCORE. And SCORE actually is very helpful as well. That's give you free mentorship. They give you time to talk to you about the business and what you want to do. So there's support and help out there for each and every last one of you. And of course, always talk with your local SBDC. Now, I know you're saying a whole lot of terms, and that's because, you know, that's how we get in the military. But to be fair for you, you can always, because I did it myself, said, okay, let me look this up to make sure. So when you look these up, you'll see what it stands for. But the SBDCs are actually in your areas, in your businesses, and some of the places where you can get the support that's needed. So I'll be turning this over shortly, but I want to thank you. We asked if you would hold your questions, and I want to make sure all of us get through is giving you as much information. You have this where you can get in touch with me. I'd be more than happy to support you in any way. Also, what I've also prepared for you is this. This is a one sheet that you can download and have. And this also goes over a lot of things that I talked about. And this is a one sheet to walk you through how you can do and make your business in the best way that you can. Again, it's a great opportunity with you. And now I'll pass it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Admiral. Great presentation. We're going to shift presentations here. It's probably better. That's a reversal of roles. I was a flag sec for 4 admirals, and we've got the admirals up here getting the flag sec squared away. Look at there, you're doing a great job, Admiral.
Well, I was a flag 8. So
Okay. We're a
both
team.
roles.
Again, good morning. I'm Tony Creed. Been in franchising for, gosh, 21 years. But I think it's a great segue because it's very important that you understand the business, because guess what? You don't buy a franchise. You're awarded a franchise to operate that franchise with your business because of the employer-employee relationship between franchisor and franchisee. So that was a great presentation, everyone. I'm glad that we set that up the way we did. I'm a certified professional business coach, certified franchise consultant. I do a lot of work with veterans. That's my joy, is doing what I call my pro bono work, is mentoring and coaching veterans and trying to help them get into business. And I really enjoy doing that. Let me tell you some good things and some bad things, though, to kind of get a frame of reference here. The good thing is that if you're going to start your business, it's great to have the freedom and everything, And it has been very rewarding financially, personally, mentally, to be able to build things, to see people's lives change, and to have influence in people's lives, that something that you created. There's three reasons that people won't do it, and that is going to be fear, funding, and spouse. So I encourage you to get the spouse first, because the other two become irrelevant really quick. If your spouse is not on board, then there's no point, because you're going to have this dream, you're going to end, you're going to get your funding in place, and guess what? She's like, why are you going to spend our money like that? Or he's going to like, hey, I'd rather for you to stay and take care of the kids. The funding, you're either qualified or you're not. That's pretty easy. The fear, you're going to have fear. Did you know I even have fear when I'm selling my businesses? Because I have fear of, hey, is it the right time? What about my employees? Because I care about them. And with new owners, because I'm telling you, I've sold some businesses where, the people are coming to, why did you sell to them? So another thing is that if you have employees, it's not going to be like being in the Navy or in the Marines or the Coast Guard. It is going to be a lot different. Different rules of how you have to lead them also, and also the aspects. So you really need to be a good HR person to be in business. We've had 565 people in one of my companies over the last 5 years. I'm in my second class action lawsuit within 12 months, different states, different brands. And the sad part about that is the last one was someone that we were close to that left the company over a year ago. And matter of fact, we even helped pay for their son's funeral. And and you'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to prove that you didn't do anything wrong. So I tell you that to give you kind of a reality check that you need to really do awareness assessment, a brutal assessment of why do you really want to do this? If it were easy, everyone would do it and the rewards would not be as high. And I only do hard stuff. I don't do easy stuff. So anyway, we'll get to it. Title of this is why veterans should consider franchising. And the reason for that is veterans are golden gooses for franchisors. They seek out veterans. 99% of them give a veteran discount. That's the number one discount that's given in franchise. It's for veterans. And we're going to talk about why. So what is franchising? You do not buy a franchise, you're awarded a franchise, because it really is taking your business and going into an operational agreement with a franchisor that's established company through the FTC and through a lot of state organizations that provide you with a branding system, proven methodologies, and ongoing support. There's got to be some value added for you if you want to be able to do business with them, like what's in it for you. Whereas if you're doing your own business, you're not going to have that same level of support. And that's why I recommend, if it's your first business, franchising is a great option for you. That's what I did, because I got out of the Navy. I thought I had a VP, I like, hey, I know about business. Well, I didn't know anything. Trust me. So you learn a lot through some mistakes. I put some, popular franchises up here. One of them was my brands. That's why I put it up there, Supercuts, which I've sold those off now. We have 2 other brands left. And then things that are not franchises. Sometimes it's hard to decide, like with the Regis Corporation, they had 9,000 salons in Canada and the US. So if you saw a Supercuts, it's like, oh, that's a franchise. Well, they only had about 1,000 of the 7,000 Supercuts that were franchises. All the other ones were corporate. So some franchisors, they have a hybrid model. So just because you will walk into a franchise, even McDonald's will have some corporate stores, you don't always get a franchise maybe corporate. When what I did is the way I built my companies is I started off with taking Smart Styles, which were in Walmart's, and they were corporate owned, and I converted them to a franchise. And a lot of people said, we like it being a franchise because when it was corporate, we never saw the people who made decisions. We felt like we were not cared about. The other thing is, we immediately came in and improved the benefits by offering a matching 401k. They had a 401k, but we offered a matching to it. And we also offered better benefits. We were more in control of what was going on in our salons. Okay. So just some numbers, 800,000 franchise establishments. So there's close to 850,000 franchise establishments across the U.S. This was in 2024. They're $860 billion in economic output. So that's what that is contributing almost $1 trillion to our economy, and 8.7 million jobs created. Franchising is a very big business. You know, there's really over 40, I think about 4,400 franchises. Half of those are food. And a lot of people relate franchising to food. I'm not a big food fan. I mean, I have fantasies of owning like a Capriati sub because I like Capriati sub. But for me, their inventory goes bad. High school kids are running my business. A lot of the food walks out the back door. And the margins are 10 to 13%. I don't know what could go wrong. So that means that when you're looking at businesses, 1 in 7 of them are franchises. That's pretty substantial. And then so it's like, well, why would I franchise when I can do it myself? So you kind of got to look at, okay, what's the difference in doing your own business and doing the franchise? Now, I've started 7 companies that were non-franchise. And let me tell you, my first couple, it was tough because I really, hadn't made the mistakes that I needed to learn from that. And so number one is I didn't have a model to go by. I did support, so I'm having to create things on my own. And so then when you're looking at doing your own business, do you buy an existing business or do you start from the scratch or do you do the franchise? So that's the things that you've got to be thinking about. And what I call resales, when you're buying another business, if I can give you a little tidbit here, only buy asset business. What I mean by that is only do an asset buy, or if you're selling an asset sell. I've only bought 1 other company. What I do is I have a C Corp that has multiple companies up under them. And then I go in and I will buy the assets of other companies and pull it into my corporation. And the reason for that is that I do not want to take on the liability, with one exception. And that is if that business is highly regulated, you could probably get by with it. I bought a mortgage bank, and highly regulated by the federal government, I mean, highly regulated. And so I felt like the reason we bought it is that it saved us 12 months and $750,000 for licensing. So that would make sense to do something like that. So the little tidbit for you out there is if you buy another company, you're buying the liabilities as well as the assets. But if you're just buying the assets, all those assets will go through a transfer. And so that's something that I learned early on when I started buying businesses is I was like, I'm going to go buy that, and I got a mentor. My mentor was like, no, you're not. You're going to buy the assets of that business. Okay. Let's look at some success of franchise versus own your own business. Now, this right here is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so if you look at the 1, 5, and 10 year of owning a franchise versus independent startup, you'll see it's almost a 2 to 1 at the 10 year. So if you look at this, which one would make more sense for success over the long haul? And there's some reasons for that. It's a proven business model that even if the franchise had just started franchising, you'll probably see that they've been doing the business for 10, I've even seen some 20. They're just now franchising that business because they wanted to have that proven model. I was just talking to one of our fellow attendees, and they've got a great model, but only been doing it about 3 years. So he said that he would probably wait to get the systems better in place before he would consider that. So training support from the franchisors, that's a huge thing because they've got this proven thing. You're going to have to go through training. And if you have general managers like I do, they have to go through the training. So you've got the business before you open the doors, well trained, well supported, and they're going to make sure that you've got all of your systems in place before you open the door, and your marketing, which is very important. Also, easier financing. Franchises are easier to finance than your own company. You know why? Because it's a proven process that they have a track record that in the franchise disclosure document, the item 19 is going to show financial that will show some stability. And they've just brought back this scoring system called FranScore. And so all the banks, they have scores for all the different franchises. So they'll look at if they won't finance, then you probably should not be trying to be awarded that franchise. And built-in marketing systems. There's actually some franchisors that they have call centers, they have marketing, and that they basically you'll buy your leads from them, but they're setting the appointment and everything for you. Whereas when you're an independent startup, you have you have to start from scratch. Nobody's telling you a whole lot unless you go through SCORE or one of the development centers, and sometimes that can be very limited because they have they're doing other things and they have multiple people they're working with. Higher trial and error risk and limited support and resources. So now you're probably wondering about, well, what can I expect for cost and the financing. That's interesting. That's how did that happen? Okay, but anyway, so low cost franchises are 50 to 150,000, and when I'm saying this, if you look at their item 5 and 7 in the FDD, which is going to be cost, and then the 5 is going to be additional cost, you're going to see a number that will shock you relative to franchise fee wise. And what they're doing is that they're showing you what you can expect. Hey, I got to buy paper clips, I got to buy computers, I got to buy trucks, I've got to rent places, and I've also got to have a salary for 6 or 12 months. So all that total investment, the franchise fee may be 50,000, your investment may be 350,000. So the other thing is, I would recommend, this is another lesson that Tony learned, is that only spend half of your money. And the reason for that is that my P&Ls prior pandemic are different than post-pandemic. We operate in New Mexico. The Walmarts shut down, and for, about 6 months, 75 people could go in at a time. So there was no income coming out of New Mexico. So you've got to be able to weather the storm. I look at it like this. I don't know if we have any aviators in here. Although I was I had a slow pin, dolphins, and brown shoes. I was Air Lance flag sec, and I got to work with aviators there in TR-BAT group. But if you were a pilot and you had the best plane there is, you've got the best fuel there is, you've got the best crew, everything is perfect, you're ready for takeoff, you have clearance, and you go full throttle, but you don't have enough runway, what's going to happen? So you can have a great idea, whether it's doing your own business or doing a franchise. But if your funding is your runway, and if you run out of runway, you're out of runway. So it's very important to get your funding in place, to understand that and not spend all of your money because you may need some money. So that's kind of a rule of thumb that I operate with. The mid-tier is 500, high tier is 500 plus. And there's some franchises, it will cost you millions to get into. The franchisor I'm with, they will not sell you, like they don't want small operators. They want people that's willing to go in and buy 25 locations. And that's just what they've decided to do. So you need, a few millions to get started. Let's talk about the financial officer. Admiral Andrews has already mentioned some of those things, and I will not repeat what she said. We've already talked about SBA, but the SBA has a vet program that is vet friendly, so you'll pay less. Programs, there are some franchisors that will in-house finance. They want you to have skin in the game, but they will do some financing for you. And then another big one that a lot of people have never heard of is called ROBS, Rollover Business Startup. Now, what that is where you're rolling your 401k into your business. And how does that work? I don't want to get too technical, but what happens is it's just like any other rollover from one 401k to another 401k. You'll set up a C Corp. You'll have a 401k trust set up in that C Corp. You will roll your funds over into your trust. The trust is a 401k trust for the benefit of yourself. You will then buy shares of the company. They will buy the shares from you through that trust. And that's a way of funding your business. You need at least $50,000 to do that. It's governed by ERISA, which is governed by the IRS and Department of Labor. There are a lot of requirements. There you would need an administrator, a third-party administrator, and they will set you up with a CPA, an attorney, and like I said, it's very technical, but it's a very good way of funding your business. And I like the hybrid model where you may do some 401k, do some SBA, and do some personal financing. That's to me the best combination that you can do, because you don't want to take all of your 401k out. You don't, and SBA right now I think it's about 10.25% because they're operating on a margin over prime. So as rates go up, it goes up. Rates go down, it goes down. So what do you got to do to get in the franchise? Number one, do a self-assessment. We've already talked about that. Why? Understand what your why is. If you can't describe what your why is, it might not be the right time for you. Research and territory check. You're going to have to figure out some interests that you may have. There's assessments out there. Matter of fact, at the end of this presentation, there'll be a QR code. If you go on that QR code, it'll send you to my website. There's an assessment that the franchising world use. It's a good little assessment for yourself to show you what your skills, your competencies, your values are, and what you should maybe consider doing, whether it's a single unit, multi-unit, or whatever. You've got to, and territory checks is going to be big. You may want to do this. You may want to do it at a place, but if there's no territory available, then it's not going to do any good. And here's another little Tony tidbit for you. Whenever you're looking at territory, never box yourself in. Now, the way I grew my business is I bought markets. You may not be able to buy markets, but you may be able to buy, one or two to start with, but do not buy up to other people's flank because you cannot grow that business. And I'll tell you why that's important is that I'm lazy. So I don't operate any of my, I manage P&Ls, I manage KPIs, and the most important thing, I manage culture. That's what I do. I have people that do the operation side. You can't afford to pay people to do the operation side with one or two units. You're just not going to produce enough income to do that. You can have a GM that especially if it's a technical thing like a home service or something to do that. But as far as having a district manager to manage your managers, no, you're not going to do that until you start getting like 8 or 9 units, and you want them consolidated so you consolidate your infrastructure. So don't be thinking about today, be thinking about 5 and 10 years, because that's usually the way franchises are set up. 5 and 5, or I have 10 years, but some of them are 5 years with a 5-year option. So I tell you that is a very important thing when you're looking at territories, is to be looking of, okay, where do I want to grow this business? How many units do I want to have? And if you want 10 different territories, well, don't buy 3 territories boxed in to other franchisees around you. Your financing, due diligence. Due diligence, you're going to look at the FDD, the franchise disclosure document. That's about 350 pages long. There's 23 items in it. It's very complex. I recommend getting a franchise attorney, not your cousin. That's the attorney that does divorces, but a franchise attorney. It's going to cost you $2,000, $2,500, whatever the going rate is. But I think it's worth it. However, most franchisors are not going to negotiate with you. And secure financing. So make sure you do that early, about 2 months out for SBA, unless it's an express, and maybe a month out. For your 4, if you want to do a ROBS, you need about 6 to 8 weeks runway on that. So you don't want to get up to the finish line where you are getting ready to go to discovery day and make a decision if you're going to, want to be awarded a franchise, and if they offer it to you, would you take it? So you really need to get your funding in place early on, just like buying a home. So look at it like that. So why should veterans excel in franchising? We're used to structure and systems. That's what I like the best, and that's why I immediately went into franchising. Through your military discipline, you were process-oriented. You have these skills that align. This is why franchisors like veterans. Leadership and teamwork. Early on in your career, you were taught leadership. That's what being an officer is to be a leader first. And so that's going to be true in your business, whether you have 1 employee or you have 1,000 employees. You have to show leadership and teamwork, and not just teamwork within your business, but teamwork with the franchisor, with the other franchisees, because they're going to give you best practices. You're going to work together. That's another thing I like, kind of almost mastermind group, is that like we had multiple, in Las Vegas, we had multiple supercuts. So we had like 5 different franchisees throughout the whole Southern Nevada. We would come together once a quarter and have a luncheon so that we could do best practices, find out what people were doing that's working for them. Mission oriented. Veterans, they excel when there's a mission, right? And financial incentives, like we talked about, the vet fran and the veteran programs and discounts that the franchisors own. Okay. Your next mission awaits. So this is what it did for me. It gave me a new mission, a new team, a new purpose. And if you're ready for your next franchising, could be your battlefield for success. And so it's been very good to me. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Admiral Evans.
So, Tony, go ahead and leave that slide up.
Okay.
First of all, I don't have any. And second, I think this is a great segue for me to shift into my topic. We'll change course here and just head on a slightly different course. So, but I think that so far we've covered already. Brian just talked. Really gave a great talk on how to build a business, what things to think about, and the mechanics to go and get it set up and for success. And then Tony talked about drill down into franchising and why that is a great opportunity and how to do that. I think the number one thing that you should take away from this talk here is that that we as veterans are well positioned to do very well in the next chapter in our lives, simply because of our experience. business loves veterans. And it doesn't matter whether you're working for somebody else or whether you're working for yourself, you have all the tools you need to succeed already resident inside of you. You know, I bring up my stoic beliefs there, but everything that you need to succeed in your next chapter of your life, you already have resided inside of you. So just remember that. Okay. The question I think that that you need to, one of the questions, and I'll say this because I do a lot of things, far more than I probably should, to be quite honest. But I'm a corporate board director. I'm a board director on both corporate boards, public boards, nonprofit boards. I'm a coach, and I'm a consultant. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. So again, if I have any issue is that I can't figure out just that one thing that I want to do and focus on it like I should. But I think one of the things that you need to kind of decide, first of all, I'll say that if you're on active duty, you're serving, stay as long as you can. Okay, stay as long as you can. All right, because you're going to get to a point where you're going to reach that retirement point. You're going to have a guaranteed paycheck for the rest of your life. All right, and that's one segment of your life you're not going to have to worry about getting a check every month. You're going to be able to, either put a roof over your head, feed yourself and your family for the rest of your life, and you don't have to worry about that. Now, your biggest decision is, what else do I want to do? Where else do I want to contribute? What impact do I want to make? And that's a great position to be in. So if you can do that, I would highly suggest that you do that. All right. So now that you've decided, now the next decision that you need to think about is, do I want to work for somebody else, or do I want to work for myself? All right. So the question is, are you more comfortable working for somebody else, or do you want to take on responsibility? Because if you decide to work for somebody else, I mean, you don't, when you're going to show up for work, what your job is going to be, and then there's a big chance you're going to have weekend. You work for yourself, all right. You're the one deciding what you're going to do every day. You're the one who's solving every problem that comes up every day, and you're probably going to work every weekend. Okay, I mean that's just bottom line. You're going to work on your business every day. All right, and so you get and if that's going to be the case, then as was already mentioned, you got to have a strong why. All right, Nietzsche says, he who has a why to live for can endure almost anyhow. So if your why is strong enough, you're going to be able to run through walls with it. Because there are going to be dark days, there are going to be hard times, and you're going to overcome some problems. And you're doing that now on active duty, but but I got to tell you, it's a different perspective when you're running your own business. Okay, you don't have that big business, that big entity, always over your head that kind of give you some modicum of safety. When you have your own business, you're the safety net, and you have to remember that. So what is your why? So, and for me, when I retired, my big thing was that that I was going to go back home, so I knew where I wanted to be, and in doing so, I had to decide, okay, what my niche of business was going to be, and so I had to decide that. So, but in doing so, I had to kind of take a self-assessment, as was mentioned here, and I decided, okay, who am I now, and who do I want to be? So you go through that self-assessment. Who am I now? What are my qualities, my characteristics, and and what impact do I want to make in the world in this next chapter of my life? Me, I wanted to be, somebody who continued to impact people's lives on an individual basis. That's the impact that I wanted to make, and that's what drove me to look in the areas that I looked at. But still, when I retired in 2020, in May of 2020, we were in the throes of what? COVID, right? We're in the throes of COVID. I'm retiring from the Navy, and and there's nobody to talk to. You know, there's nobody to talk to. So what the heck am I going to do? So, you know, so I did like Tony. The first place I did is look, okay, where can I get a ready-made business? And so I started a logistics business. I did last mile delivery. I opened a business called Flag Bridge Logistics, and you talk about names, you know, which I drew from my time as a carrier strike group commander, being on the flag bridge and being able to look out at my entire strike group from that flag bridge and run my operations from there. So started Flag Bridge Logistics, the last mile delivery, and I partnered with Amazon. And Amazon, huge company. So, you know, so I'm not talking about the sprinter vans you see delivering stuff. I'm talking about 16, 24-foot box trucks, which delivered, you know, anything that you bought there was, you know, so when you bought your big screen televisions from Amazon, when you bought your kayaks from Amazon, when you bought your refrigerators from Amazon, my folks delivered it. Great business. I had a great team, and I was very surprised at how much money I was making doing that in gross revenue. And I did that for 2 years. I did it for 2 years, and you know, I mean, it was a great business run. I learned a lot about running businesses and being a business person. And but at the end of 2 years, I made the decision that I really wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't having that individual impact on people's lives, and so I said, so I sold that business and did very well. People were, you know, asking me, why are you selling that business? You're doing really well. I said, so it's not, you know, it's just not. And again, remember, I have my safety net, so I can make decisions like that, you know, because I have my safety net. You know, I've got a retirement, you know, I've got a disability, you know, so I have that safety net, so I can make decisions like that. So also was corporate board director. I'm a corporate board director of 2 publicly traded companies. Got into that because of mentorship. Okay, and as you heard you say, your net worth is your net worth. Write that down, please. Your net worth is your net worth. Okay, so you are as valuable and as the people that you have in your network. Okay, because those are the people who are going to guide you, advise you, and you know, and either pull you back from that edge, or push you in a direction that you really weren't either thinking about going or didn't think that you should go, because they see something in you that you can succeed in that area. And that's what happened. That happened to me. So I even succeeded in that area when I was advised by others that I wouldn't be that successful. And so you know, so I'm on the board of Merit Medical Systems, which is a device maker company that makes devices used in medical procedures that save people's lives or improve the quality of their lives or extend their lives. You know, very easy for me to get on board with. Again, making that impact on people on an individual level. Okay. And then my other board is corporate board is Alarm.com, which is a software as a service, residential and commercial security company. Those of you have your Alarm.com app on your phone because you have that in your house, so I appreciate your business. So, and if you have any feedback, let me know. I'd be happy to take that back to the company. But being in the boardroom, again, it's another level of where we as veterans are valued. We come with a strategic thinking. We come with a risk mitigation, risk management. We come with the ability to be able to ask questions that they don't, you know, critical questions that they don't always think about. And so, but it was a mentor who put me on that path to go there. And then some nonprofit boards. I sit on the foundation of my college. I'm also the vice chair of the advisory board for the School of Humanities at my college, my alma mater. And then on a community level, where I'm from in South Carolina now. I'm on board of the Community Foundation of Low Country. Again, making impact in people's lives. And then one other nonprofit I'm on is the Christian Military Museum and Library in Chicago. Again, veteran focused, being able to make an impact, telling the story of the citizen soldier. But so that's kind of where I want to contribute and who I want to be, and I'm continuing to be every day. Next, I'll tell you is that as I said, that the things you need to be successful, those core things already reside within you. But unfortunately, we're always lifelong learners, and we want to continue to learn more and more and more. I will caution you on trying to just thinking that you need to learn everything, that you need to have every certification, that you need to have every this or that in order for anybody to be interested in. Be judicious on that. You got to take your time. It takes up your resources, and whatever. And I'm again I've been a little guilty of that too. In order to be a better coach, now that I've been rooted in business, I figured, okay, let me get some foundational stuff in being a business coach on how to teach others on doing business. So I'm a certified business coach. As I make impact, I'm a certified life coach. That didn't think I really, after looking in hindsight, I probably didn't need to do that. And I'm also, and I'll just put that out, I'm a certified hypnotherapist. Okay. I use it all the time, but that's, I probably really didn't need that. So again, think about those tools you need to have in your tool bag. And we do that all the time. The tools you have, you do that self-assessment and what you need in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So the next big thing that I think that you need to consider, again, as was mentioned by both my esteemed panel mates here, is think about your niche, okay? And drill down, and as Admiral Andrews said, be specific about what your niche is. You can, serving everybody is serving no. Serving everybody is serving no. Okay? When you try to be everything to everybody, all right, you make an impact on no one. You may feel like you're doing a lot, but when you start looking at impact, you're really not doing that much. That sounds kind of harsh, but it's true. It's true. So determine your niche, determine who you want to serve, and then drill down to that point and do that. And again, as Andrews mentioned also, you got to test your message, right? Because what you think you think you want to bring, all right, may not be what the people you want to serve need. So they should be telling you what they need, and then you should be working to fill that need in your unique way, with your unique message, making an impact on their lives that nobody else can make, right? And that's the big part of coaching. And when you do that, you're going to be surprised at how that grows. How that grows, because you think, okay, I'm only doing this segment of people, but this segment of people is probably larger than you think it is, based on that, and people will gravitate to you because your message is resonating with them. So think about that as you think about what you want to do. So and then as was mentioned before, you need to be structured correctly, both in your business to include taxes, what your tax structure is for you and your businesses, and to make sure that you do that in a way that protects you and is in the best interest of you and your companies. So, but one of the big things that, and then we'll get into question and answers here, because it's we need to make sure we have time for that. But just again, from what you've heard from the three of us this morning, gives you a great foundation. Think about, so if you're thinking about what you're going to do, if you're thinking about pivoting to something else, great information here, and we look forward to your questions. So with that, we'll go ahead and shift over to questions.
Yeah, there's a question that was submitted by Preston Butler. Question reads, give me advice for virtual businesses that is different from the brick and mortar. I think
What-
that would be I'd like to get each of your thoughts.
Hmm.
Any advice for virtual businesses that is different from the traditional brick and mortar business?
You might want to repeat that.
Yeah. Hold on, let's see.
Oh, that,
I think it's
Yeah.
a good question. I see what you're saying.
so the question was the difference or advantage for virtual versus
Any
brick and mortar?
thoughts on someone that's opening a virtual business versus a traditional?
Well, let me tell you what my experience is right now. We're actually launching a virtual business in September. And it is basically a fractional CBO or chief business officer. What we found is a gap out there is, especially for the larger franchisee or multiple unit owners, whether it's franchise or not, is that they get kind of caught up in the everyday stuff and they don't tend to the back office. It will kill you. And I'm not talking about bookkeeping. I'm talking about the stuff. The most important document to me in my companies is my employee handbook. But the franchisor cannot tell you how to write the employee handbook because then that crosses the line employer-employee relationship. So the advantage is you have employees because we're not going to have any W-2s. We're going to use 1099s, which are independent contractors, and you don't have brick and mortars. Two people I dislike in my business that I have to personally deal with: lawyers and landlords. Bankers are really close, so they're definitely in three. They could move in two real quick. So not having brick and mortar, not having employees, or if you have employees, of having a low count below 50, because then you got to be ACA compliant in the paperwork, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of advantages to over the brick and mortar. And the brick and mortar is a lot of what we call OPEX. So CapEx to build out and OPEX to maintain and to run. And the new business and landlord is their new profit centers called CAMs, Common Area Maintenance. We got overcharged $12,000. So, you have to get a lawyer to go after that. So a lot of advantages to me for the virtual business. Disadvantage: if you're doing a virtual business, you're probably going to do some sales. If you're not into sales, you may want to think. Yes.
Curious to know, and for each of you, or if anyone is particularly doing it, how you've optimized the use of AI in your personal business, where you leaned into it, where you found value, maybe not a full reliance on it, but where you used it and how you found success with it.
Well, I'll say for me, as a business consultant, one of the organizations that I actually do business consulting with, and believe it or not, sometimes you have organizations that are out there, but they don't have a vision, they don't have a structure, they have a roadmap. So I was able to a couple of times to use AI because it's just really general. Let's say one of those is a construction company. So with this construction company, they were doing well with millions and millions of dollars, but they didn't have a vision, but they still did well. So I was able to use AI to come up with, say, a structured one because it's out there on how a company should be ran. However, you can make the changes to what you see and help that person come up with a statement of vision of what they're all about so they can help others. So I have used it for that, and it's definitely useful. And I think all of us will probably learn a lot more from AI, but you also got to make sure that you don't take away from that personal touch. So it could be a structure, but how does that work with the people that you're dealing with, their personality, and the business that they desire?
Could you paraphrase that in so the folks online know what you're speaking to?
Sure. The question here in the room is how we're using AI in our businesses And so, from my perspective, I use AI almost every day. AI screens my email. AI even recommends answers to my email, and then I tweak it and I'll send it. AI tells me what my schedule is every day. I've used AI to analyze documents. I've used AI to analyze strategy. With AI, it's one of the biggest issues, and we'll have a great AI talk this afternoon. But I'll just say this now: it's from my time with AI, it's the thing that I learned most is that most people use AI like Google. They ask it a question and then they just take the answer that they give. AI is a conversation. AI is a tool. It's not a it's a tool. So it's not just a database that you're pulling from. It's a tool. The more you go back and forth with it, the better answer you're gonna get to the question you're asking. You can tell, and then the other thing that there are a couple of things you need to tell AI. You need to tell it what it's gonna do, right? How it's gonna do it. You need to give it an example of what a good answer looks like, right? All right, and then tell it to go do the work. And then when I'm doing the work, I even go back and, hey, is this the best answer you can give me on this? And we'll dig even deeper to refine that question. So it's a conversation. And again, it's not Google. It's a tool. And I think that those folks who use AI and use it in that manner, as opposed to being afraid of it because I hear all the time, well, AI hallucinates all the time. So why should I even trust it? I said, well, again, you have to have that conversation with it because you don't give it enough context, you don't give it enough background, you don't give it the right reference. You are going to get those type of things because it will just pull from the database. But I think that if you use it correctly, and those people who learn how to use it correctly are going to have a big advantage in the future.
I just want to add one more to that on AI. While it's certainly a great tool, and I said that I've used it, we got to make sure the right people are using it. We don't want, our, the college student. I know this is much quicker, everything to do, the high school student, but, you have young people that are asking it to order things online and do all sorts of stuff. But I would say it's just that we have to make sure we don't use or lose, I would say, our vision, our purpose, our mindset, our own thinking. That when you go for a job, AI is not going to be right there when you're talking to a boss. You got to make sure. Now, you may have done it the night before so you can get all the responses or answers, but let's make sure that it doesn't stop what we're thinking, but it does make our work a little bit faster. I think it's only going to grow in many places. Thank you.
I have a question about corporate boards. A lot of folks bring on nonprofit boards because they're motivated by or passionate about something. There is a lot of information about corporate boards out there and value and benefit, et cetera. But how does someone put themselves in a position to be seen in order to put themselves on one of those corporate boards? There are folks out there that are kind of just, LinkedIn is a wonderful tool. There are folks out there that are even saying, hey, here's this program to put you in a position to be competitive. And it's a way for somebody to make money, which is competitive. I think that business model is not about you being a member of the board, it's about making that money to put on that best, just those things. How do you put yourself in, how does one put himself in a position to go down that path that we talked about, that find a reward, doing some great work?
Well, I think there are a couple of ways that first of all, you have to kind of think about, okay, what skill sets would I bring to a company from the board perspective in what industry? You get down from there, and then again, you have to have a network. From my experience in the corporate board world has been, how did I get in? Well, my network introduced it to me. You know, I still had to go through all the interviews with the search firms. I still had to go through all the interviews with the companies. You know, and I had to, you know, and I had competition to get there. And I was fortunate enough to wind up, you know, in the board chair. But you got to start with the network. You know, it starts with not going out and asking people, hey, you know, can you get me on a board? It goes, there's building relationships and then having those conversations where you say, hey, this is something I'm thinking about. Do you think this is a good idea for me? Or would this be a good role for me? You know, and as you know, the natural inclination of us as humans is that we want to be helpful. So when we start having those type of conversations, somebody might say, hey, well, let me introduce you to this person who is a corporate board rep. They can talk to you about it. You know, and then they get to know you and they see that you might be bringing value. So maybe they introduce you to a search firm, you know, who's doing a search for a board, or a company who's decided not to use a search firm, and whether that be a public or a private company. And so again, it's kind of understanding, you know, what you might bring to the table, and what industries and what areas, and then, you know, building a network and cultivating your network, and everyone should, you know, again, your, as I said, your network is your net worth. So you should be building it all the time, not with the especially, but again, you want to meet people who are doing things that you want to do. You should be meeting people who are just interesting, and you want to ask them how they got to where they are, you know, and start building those relationships, and that takes time. So, like I said, my network, you know, again, my post-Navy network, I've been building inside the Navy for a long time. So, and then those are people who were serving with me, and there are people who I was meeting out in the community. Every time Navy sent me out to do something, you know, I always meet somebody. If there's somebody who's interested, they stayed in my network. Yeah.
Coach, good job.
Yeah.
Right. Following question on the franchisee side of the house. There are lots of folks that reach out to people. Their service to help with the position to become a franchisor. And some of those are almost predatory in nature. That is the business. To take from those that want to pursue a franchise, just, you know, use them until they're all used up. There are those credible resources. Someone that's interested in that franchise, or they go out and accomplish that they're not going to be used, but it's important. So install today, they can be on the path of negotiating, establish a relationship with the franchisor. And if you like looking forward, not just.
That's a great question, because when there's money involved, you know, there's things that don't go well sometimes. So those people that are reaching out to you are probably not the people that you would work with. They are the people that are trying to get leads, and then they turn around and sell those leads to the industry. So here's what my recommendation would be. I used a franchise consultant, not for my first, because I had relationship with the area developer. The recent ones, I used a franchise consultant because I needed to get things moving quick, and I knew what I wanted to do because the opportunity popped up and it would not last long. So if you use a franchise consultant, this is what I recommend, is someone that actually has been in franchising. Those, number two, they're with a company, a reputable company, that they have a certification. Industry has not been well regulated. FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, does govern at the national level. And if you use one of those franchise consultants, then like me, if I help somebody, I don't charge, I get a referral fee from the franchisor. So some people do charge. I don't. And then I give free coaching after the transaction for veterans. I don't do that for the other people, but for veterans, I give free coaching for 2 months afterwards. And also I encourage, I'm a certified implementer for BOS, which is the same as EOS, same 90 IO platform. If you've read the book Traction, if you're going to go into business, read the book Traction. Get a Grip is the second, but Get a Grip first. It's a story. Traction is more academic. That's about your operating systems. All the things that Admiral Andrews and Admiral Evans was talking about, that's exactly how you should be running your business. It starts off with vision and values and KPIs and business planning, but it's all a platform. So I highly recommend people that actually have done business to advise you on doing business. So you don't learn to swim, but you got someone that knows how to swim to teach you, right? Great question though, because those people are not the people that you'll probably be doing business. They're just trying to get you to get interested, and they're going to sell your lead.
Questions around work?
Anything else online?
Do me a favor. You talked about the bench frame. Elaborate on that a little.
I'm not an expert on vet friend, but this is what I know from my own personal experience. And the rules change all the time. Matter of fact, there's just been a big change in SBA. But the vet friend program, number one, is that you're going to get favorable treatment as a veteran. You're going to pay half of the guarantee cost. And most, if you're a non-veteran, your down payment is going to be. So the funding fee for that, like I said, you're going to pay half of that than a regular person. You're going to have preference lending, and the big thing is that you don't have as big a down payment. It's a good program.
There's one question about contact information. You had two panel members' contact information. Sir, would you throw out your initial contact information for those folks that are going to be challenged by getting the material afterwards?
Sure. One can email me at Stephen@flagbridgeglobalsolutions.com.
How you supposed to be?
STEPHEN. Thanks for asking. Flagbridge Global Solutions.
And I know time has certainly come upon us, and please feel free. I'm sure, first of all, I just want to thank being on the panel here with my esteemed colleagues. It's certainly great to see you and of course meet you as well. But I also want to say to you, and when you're going into business, first of all, just know it is scary. But I'm here to tell you, you have exactly what it takes to succeed. All of the things that you have learned while in uniform, take those with you as well. So I just want to say thank you for being a part of this. And I wish you all the best. But just remember, you have mentors, and we're out there to support you and help you in every way. Thank you again for your time.
Mentor is the most important person in your life. Gosh, I don't know where I'd be without Ralph Miller
And
and Vern Clark. I bet you know, good buddy of mine. He was EA when I was flag sailor.
Is there a stop button?
Ray Spicer.
I did.
Yeah, we played golf at least twice a week. Yeah. What a great. Were you before?
Oh, after.